So without further ado, let's get going. So the agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about what do we really mean by alignment and these team meetings, and talk about where these good, well-intentioned efforts go sideways. Then we're going to spend a few minutes on the strengths of your own behavioral style. If you're holding these meetings, chairing these meetings, leading these things, what might you do well? What might you have to think about? And then some insight with others. How do I understand what different people who with different behaviors need? And then importantly too, how can we go back and check and make sure we've got that alignment? People understand what's in front of them and what to do. That's as important as anything. So as always, feel free to unmute and just jump in with a question, or you can put it in the chat if you don't want to be that bold and daring and feel like you're interrupting, which you're not, because we're here for you. And we'll make sure that we answer those questions. So let's go. Off we go. When we're talking about alignment, we're thinking about things like, hey, we want to cascade goals, or we want to identify or refresh priorities, or things like that, right? Areas and a focus where we're doing things at a team level. It might be a town hall, right? It might be a project team meeting, whatever the case is. And I think we've all been in that position where you go and do a really good job, and you go communicate it and put a lot of effort in, and you think, boy, we nailed it. And then afterwards you go, how come we don't have the alignment, understanding, buy-in? God, we just went to this effort. I was just working with a client last week, and they're a big multinational manufacturer. And we was talking with the CEO, and he said, we just got done doing a series of town halls, and swear word, swear word, swear word. I don't think I'm ever going to do that again, because we did a ton of effort. And I felt like we did it great. And it, we got some things back from pulse surveys, and it didn't hit the mark. And he was fired up. And one of the things we spent some time on was, it's a bunch of very high dominant, high extroversion, low patience, low detail executives. And we talked a little bit about how much were they talking? How much were they listening? How fast were they going? Did they give people a chance to digest and understand? And what do people really need? And he had that moment where he just went, oh, we just kind of showed up and we're us. And we put an effort in and did it the way we wanted it. And I said, yeah, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? The idea of this is really important. It just is, we can do a few things to try to adjust based on who is in our audience that can make it a lot more effective. And happily was able to help him not decide that town halls are a black hole of no reward for tons of effort. But I think we've all had a version of that, right? Where that happens and you go, how come this didn't work? It's part of why we all hate meetings a lot, right? Because meetings are a necessary evil. But that's what we want to get to, is let's not have good efforts leave you frustrated or leave your leaders going, I'm not doing that anymore because I tried it and it didn't work. And a lot of times what it is we're just being us, and that works for part of the audience. And we can adjust a little bit. So how do we get better results with a couple key adjustments is what we're really going to talk about here. And it's a big deal, right? You've probably seen lots of stats with these, but alignment is, right? We understand what's important. We understand what we need to do in order to be successful. And you get a lot around alignment. And you can see it from a profitability, sales effectiveness, right? Customer churn piece, because people are rowing in the right direction. We've done some research with Columbia University on trying to understand what are some of the most important enduring leadership capabilities going forward. And one of the things that came back is really kind of setting clear expectations, creating that alignment. What are the priorities? What are the boundaries? It doesn't sound like a sexy leadership skill, but it's critically important, right? Because otherwise, how do people get started? How do I know what I'm really responsible for, what to work on and not work on, et cetera? And so one of the surprises that came out of our partnership with Columbia was that kind of setting expectations and getting alignment is a big deal, not a small deal in terms of driving performance. It just doesn't, it's not as cool sounding as maybe developing talent, right? Or thinking strategically. It just happens to be damn effective at driving performance. So that's what we want to do, right? And as I talked about, what we're talking about is, what do we mean? Maybe it's setting or refreshing a vision or goals or key priorities or parameters or plans. And it can take all sorts of formats, right? Team meetings or town halls, groups, project teams, cross-functional, even cascading communications down through an organization. It's the idea of, I've got to get something important that has some complexity and nuance to it, out to a group of people with different behaviors so that they can take action or know exactly what to do. So you probably have lots of other things that come to mind in terms of this, and that's all well and good for sure. So that's setting kind of the context of hopefully what we're talking about here. And some of what we're going to share with you in a minute in terms of how do behaviors impact this, we've tried to put through that lens of when you're sharing these kind of things, goals, expectations, priorities, et cetera, right? How does that influence it a little bit, or what do people need on the other end? So hopefully, it won't be unfamiliar to you, but we've hopefully given enough context to it to make it actionable. So let me pause there for a minute and see if there's any questions, thoughts, reactions so far, chat or otherwise, before we kind of jump forward here. All right. So take out your BA if you don't have it handy. And as always, we're going to focus you on your top self graph or the top self graph of others. And if you would like yours and don't have it, Zing here a little chat message, she'll try to get it for you. Right. And I think everyone here from the names I see knows this, but high A dominance, right? High B extroversion, low C patience, low D formality or structure is kind of what we're talking about here. So we're going to first move into how do these behaviors affect you if you're delivering this kind of communication, right? Or want to have this kind of meeting conversation. So what you're going to get is a form after the webinar today. So you can fill this out on you, or you could help another leader fill it out on themselves. The first thing is, how do I understand what I might naturally do well and where I might need to adjust for others? And then there'll be another form for you to look at a team of people to know, how do I adjust my approach a little bit here? What do I need to do and not do? So it looks a little bit like this, and we'll jump there right now in terms of that. So again, the context is, right, this, which is, how do I, if I'm leading this alignment or communication effort, I want to have a team meeting, or I have to lead this team meeting or a group meeting or town hall or whatever, right? So first, always, we're trying to think about self-awareness for all of us. How do I increase my own self-awareness? So I know what I might naturally do well, lean into that. And then who do I need to adjust to a bit? So if you're trying to have this meeting, lead this conversation, right? And you've got high A dominance, what are you going to do well? Well, be assertive, be direct, be very focused on outcomes and impact, right? Great. There's usually pretty good clarity when high A's are leading these conversations, right? That way's north, and here's where we're going, and here's what winning looks like. Good. And sometimes that may be a little blunt, may be a little intimidating, may not invite as much discourse or conversation or pushback, because it can be a lot with those high A's, right? For sure, which is okay, right? It doesn't mean don't ever do that. It's the power of the and, which is based on who I'm talking to. That might be perfect. But if I've got a whole group of low A's, I might take it down a couple of notches, right? For sure. Low A's, right? When they're leading these efforts, what's going to show up really well? That willing, supportive helpfulness, right? The team is first. I want the team to be successful. And you're going to feel the love from the low A's, right? Because what's most important to them is others before self. And they're going to come across very much, we're in it together. How can I help you, right? Create that welcoming, open environment for people that they feel like they can talk about. What may be hard for them? Maybe not enough direct accountability or assertiveness, especially if there's a feeling of conflict, right? Maybe not as much clarity if it might be a little controversial, or they have to take a tough stand on things. That may not be there, right? Who doesn't need that? Other low A's are okay with that, right? A high A, maybe not. You might have to be a little more direct. You might have to push them a little more if you want them to buy in, engage in the message. Okay? High B's, what are they going to do well? You know it, right? They're going to communicate and be persuasive and engaging, and they think out loud. So they like having these meetings and doing the verbal communication. That feels like work is getting done to them, right? We're talking about this. This is great. They can get engaged and energized by that opportunity for sure. Sometimes, especially depending where their A is, they may want to have some consensus over clarity, right? Okay, that's a watch out. This is not always a time for consensus. If we want people to take action and go, I know what I need to do, I know what my role is, I have got to make sure I'm super clear. Love what you guys are doing in the chat. Yes, for sure. Right. So high Bs are good at the verbal part of this and sharing this and being persuasive and engaging in that piece for sure. Great. Thinking out loud may desire consensus over clarity. All right. We got to be careful of that because that we don't always have time for. So there's time and a place for that. Sometimes not. Right. Low Bs. What are they going to do? They're going to be thoughtful, analytical, and critical thinking happens before they talk. They're not just thinking out loud and speaking, right? If they're going to get up and hold this meeting, they've gone through exactly what they want to say, how they want to say it. What might be the challenge? Sometimes they underestimate the emotional components or the needs of others to talk about it or talk about the feelings about it, right? Because they want to be super substantive about the facts. And they've been very careful and thoughtful about what they're going to say. And so they might underestimate or overlook other people need to talk it through as a way to think, as a way to build that buy-in and engagement, which sometimes to a low B can feel like we're spending a little time on the fluff and the feels here. We got to get to the stuff, gang. Right? So a strength and a watch out. High C's leading this effort. They're going to be methodical and very purposeful, right? And they're going to go through this in a very sequential kind of first, second, third step and accommodating, right? In terms of they give other people space to talk, to weigh in, to share their opinions, all of which is great, right? One of the great things about high C's is you know what you're going to get, right? Very consistent and predictable, and consistent and predictable helps build trust. What might be the challenge? High C's, they want to start at the beginning and go through all the steps, right? You may not have the time to get to the essence and really focus on that, or to create enough urgency with the team around how quickly we have to get, what is the essence of the message? What's the essence of how quickly we need to take action, and the willingness to push, right? The willingness to push and get that moving for sure, because they are so thoughtful and patient, right, about things. Low C's, they're going to have a bias reaction. When do they want to take action? Now, yesterday, right? Let's get moving. And they're going to push and challenge others to get going. Good. They can move a group forward, right? And help push and create momentum. Wonderful. Challenge. Situational listening, right? That's the best euphemism we can come up with for the low C listening, which is they want to listen to the part about the action we're going to take that's interesting to them. If it's not that, you might have lost them, right? For sure. And when you're communicating these things, you have to slow down enough for people to get where they are, right? The person that's communicating or setting expectations or setting a vision agenda has already probably given this some thought. They know this, right? They've been over this a bit and they're ready to go take action. Others are just boarding the train, and they even found their seat in the train. They want to get the train going right now, this second, before they have a chance to get settled and get used to this idea. So low C's, especially at the beginning of this, have to slow down so others can process, can think about it, et cetera, if they want to speed up. High D's, right? In this situation, what are they going to cover? Probably everything thoroughly, right? Great clarity of expectations, detailed. They have high standards about things, and they've probably rolled up their sleeves already to get involved with this. What might be the challenge? They may not delegate enough or quickly enough. And they may, if it's not fully done, fully baked, I've got the entire plan, they may be reluctant to share some of it or parts of it because it's not complete. So not quickly enough getting in front of people and then letting people own it. And then their own personal standard of no mistakes, impossible for a human. They just happen to hold themselves to that standard, right? But if you wait for perfect to get going, we're often late to the party, for sure. Low D's, they're going to paint that big picture of what's possible. They're undaunted by plans that aren't in place, objections, ambiguity, right? They look at it and go, yeah, we got to get there. So let's figure it out, which is great. But as you know, there's a bunch of high D's and others who go, okay, I understand the objective. Where's the beef? Where's the meat in the sandwich? How are we going to do this? Right? And they may not have that clarity or may not remember to give enough of that. So just some thinking about what are some of the strengths that people might bring to this, and what are the watchouts when communicating around expectations, goals, objectives, those kind of things. So let me pause for a second and see if there's any questions or thoughts or just reactions to it. But because the idea here is you could take this form, if it's you or one of your leaders, and say, hey, let's just go through this and maybe circle those things you go, yep, that's me, right? So we can increase their awareness of strengths to lean into, right? That's the first thing always. Like, what if we paid better attention to the strengths we have? Winning, right? And then with certain audiences, what do I need to be aware of so that I might pick one or two things to adjust on depending on the audience? And Amber, you're going to get these tools. It's a good question. And the forms and all of this. So we'll give you all of the slide deck content and some forms to use so you can have that. And the idea is, if this is quick and simple on important things like this, you might be able to help a leader know, how do I adjust a bit? So Amber, thanks for asking that question. Anything else? So this is, how do I help myself or a leader who's kind of leading the effort, leading the meeting, for sure. Travis, low B and high C. Any advice on developing a meeting agenda that has more urgency, but also is thoughtful and process oriented? So Travis is not asking for a magic unicorn here. This is actually a great question. Low B and high C, you put those folks in a meeting with high patience and lower extroversion. And what's going to happen is they're going to listen and think to everything that's being said carefully, right? And are they going to be saying a lot or maybe anything? No, because they're actually really thoughtfully listening, right? And the low B is in their head thinking about it and processing. The high C is patiently listening carefully, right? Et cetera, et cetera. So you put those folks in a meeting and they might not have a ton to say in the meeting in the moment. So to your point, Travis, I think there's a couple of things you can do, which is where you can share any information in advance. The high C, low B folks, as well as high D, low B, and some others will really appreciate it because they'll have a chance to read it and think about it before they get there in a moment. So when you can do that, right, even if it's, I just know this so far and think about it, I just have this, here's the agenda, here's some questions I want you to consider, that helps them. There are instances where you can't prep, right, or things come up in the meeting. One thing to do is think about those folks, and at the end of the meeting, see if they have something yet. If not, say, hey, think about it, 24 hours, I want you to come back and let me know your questions, let me know your thoughts, let me know your whatever, right? Those high C, low B people, when you give them a chance to process it, they often come back with really good nuggets of gold, right? Sometimes things other people haven't brought up. So the idea, Travis, is anytime you can give them a little heads up or even a little time afterwards is good. But you're also raising another point. Sometimes there's some urgency. We have to go now. And I think every high C, low B lives in the world where they know that that's going to be the case. And it's okay to create that expectation, which is to say, hey, high C, low B, at the end of this meeting, I need to have your thoughts. We don't have extra time. So I'll wait till the end, but can you tell me what you think at that point, right? They know sometimes that's what's going to happen, but you don't want to put them on the spot during the entire meeting because that is uncomfortable and kind of forcing mandatory fun on them. And they're not ready yet, right? Because uniquely, they are one of those people that does listen to everything carefully and thoughtfully, right? And so sometimes they have that unique perspective. So when you can do that, which is give them advance info or give them a little time after to contemplate and then hear from them, great. But if you have to have something now, just let them know that and let them kind of speak at the very, very end. And that will help them for sure. And to the question you're asking and that Amber is asking, we got diverse teams. How do we touch on all of it? We're going to get to that piece in just a second for sure. Okay. Any other thoughts or questions on the leader driving kind of these kind of meetings? All right. So Travis and Amber are great lead facilitators here for us because they're going where we want to go next, which is what we do with others, right? What about our audience, if you will, or our participants? So you're participating in this meeting, right? Or you have folks that are going to participate. What do they need? For sure. High A's. Get to the bottom line impact, the outcome, right? Start there. Don't start at the beginning and I want to go to the end, the outcome. What does winning and losing look like, right? And you can challenge them and push them, right? You say, hey, to high A's, let's go do world domination. They go, great, you got it. I'm in. Let's do world domination for sure, right? They want to win. So what has to get communicated? Bottom line, impact, outcome, and winning and losing. Winning and losing from their standpoint. How do you win? How do you lose? If we do this, you win. If you don't, we lose. Now you have their full undivided attention for sure. Low A's. What do they need? Some reassurance, right? About this, right? They don't need to have their manhood or their womanhood or whatever challenged. They need to know that you believe in them and you have confidence in them, right? Reassurance. Hey, you could really do this well because, and kind of lowering the temperature. So it's less about conflict and competition and more about world peace, for sure. So lower A people, it doesn't mean they aren't competitive, but how do they want to win as a team, right? They want to win as a team, not as an individual. We have some clients who are former Division I athletes who were really, really successful and they're really competitive, but they're low A. So how do they want to compete at a team level, right? Selflessly interested in others. It's two different ways to talk about that message. High B's, what do they need? Which inclusion, which is I'm in on things early on, meaning the important stuff that's going around here, it's shared with me and I get a chance to talk about it and share it. So high B's need the opportunity to think out loud with others, talk about it and weigh in, right? Verbal communication, and they're stimulated by the ideas with others for sure. So sometimes you might think a written is going to nail it. Okay. You might want to just pick up the phone or get on a Zoom or just go walk by and have a chat with that high B person if you can't have a verbal conversation for some reason, right? They want to talk about it out loud. When you have these meetings, guess who the people are who are going to say a lot? High B's, right? Especially if they've got low C. Lower extroverts, what do they need? They need some time to think, and they really like it in writing before or even after. And they want to get to the substance, right? Don't give me the fluff and the fuzzies. Let's get to the substance of the matter and be very straightforward about that for sure. So, for example, right, you have something maybe that you're trying to rally the troops on and fire them up, inspire and motivate for sure. Okay, good. There's going to be some of that in there. What else needs to be in there? The real substance of it for the low B's, right? And they don't usually love being put on the spot. It's not that they won't speak up if they have a question or a thought, they will, but don't force mandatory fun on the low B's, which is, call on them in the meeting before they've had a chance to think about it. They don't like that. When they have something to say, they'll say it. For sure. High C's, time to consider this and bring back questions. If this is the first time you've rolled this out to a high C, they're going to want to know, why are we doing this? And it's really important with high C's and high D's to not take their questions and their initial reluctance on something new or different as they're not on board. False, right? What they're doing is saying, I'd like to know why, and I'd like to, if I'm a high C, get time to get my plan ready, because they're doing things a certain way today for a reason. It's not cavalier. It's a sequential process. So if you're saying we're going to do something new, different, I want you to start this or stop that, they need some time to think about that and bring back their questions and understand why so that they can be ready. So high C's, it's probably not one conversation and they're off to the races. If you think they are, you're sadly mistaken. Right? They're still thinking about, what do I need to do to get ready to start this? Even if we think we've given them all the direction and of course we're all just going to start running in that way. No, probably not. But please do not mistake why, or let me think about that for they're not on board. That is not what they're saying, right? They're saying, I want to get ready for this and I need to contemplate how to do so. Low C's, bullets, concise, focused on the action we're going to take. Right? And you talk about action or change and their brains are excited and they go, yes, let me go. Let's end the meeting early so I can go start doing that. Again, situational listening and bias for action. You might want to do a little reinforce, check for understanding of what are we going to do? What did we say here? What did we agree on to make sure they've got it? Absolutely, right? But are they going to have any problem going, yeah, let's go. I'm ready? Probably not. High D's. What's the expectation? What does success look like? Tell me exactly what we need to do here. so I can get started. A high D person cannot get started without clarity of expectations. Tell me what success looks like. And if you give it to them in writing, my gosh, they like it because they're going to keep it and reference it, right? But please hear me. A high D person cannot get started without clarity of expectations. What does I need to do? What does success look like? How do I know I'm on track? Low D and C people don't need clarity of expectations to finish, right? They'll start and middle and finish without expectations. It may or may not be what you want them to do, but they are off to the races. High C's and D's need a little more clarity, time, right, et cetera. And that's how you slow down to speed them up. And it usually doesn't happen in a first meeting like this. There usually needs to be some follow-up. And when you get that follow-up, guess what they're going to do? Execute beautifully, wonderfully, on time, on quality each day over and over again. It's a lovely thing, but not if you can't get them started. You have to know they are not starting unless they have clarity, right, and comfort about how and what. Low D's, outcomes and deliverables we must have with clear guardrails. You must deliver me this outcome, and under no circumstances are you to go outside these guardrails. And then let them figure out how. Do not waste your breath and time on 22-point implementation plans because they'll just smile sort of politely at you. And when you're out of your room, they just throw it in the trash and go, I got my own way to do it. This is how I'm going to get there. That's okay, as long as you're super clear about the deliverables and the guardrails and absolutely threaten their life, right? You go outside those guardrails, you don't give me what I want, then I will start micromanaging your activity. And they'll do anything under the sun to keep you off their back of micromanaging their activity, right? Now, what might they miss? Okay, what are the mundane details, contingencies? Do we have a little plan B? That might be some of the follow-up because their plan B is kind of similar to their plan C, D, E, F, and G. I'll cross that bridge when I get there. And I'm sure it won't be that big a deal. I'll just overcome it. Okay, maybe, but there's some things that you don't want that to be the case on, right? So the follow-up with a low D is, tell me a little bit about this plan you have and what if, and have you thought about, right? So it doesn't mean you need to do every single one of these things perfectly, right? When you think about someone's behaviors, think about their furthest right factor. That might be one of the two things you pick, and then that furthest left. Usually the furthest right, furthest left, those are those strongest two, and those might be the most resonant for someone for sure. But this is helpful in terms of, right, some things I might need to think about. And a lot of you are going to what Amber said, which is, what do we do when we've got a mixed crowd of folks, right? So, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. But the idea is, based on the group I have, how do I cover, right, the needs here a little bit? What things can I do verbally and how should I present some of this, right? And then for others where it's not world domination, it's world peace, how do I make sure I cover that a little bit, right? If I can give any advance notice or a summary of it afterwards in writing, and who do I need to follow up with, high C's and D's on these kind of things, great. I'm going to have a very short follow-up with my low C to make sure they actually got what we said and the action they're going to take is right. And with my low D, I'm not going to manage activity. I'm going to manage outcomes and guardrails to make sure they have clarity of that so that when they launch and go, it's at least in the right lane that we want them to be in. So usually one or two things can help make a big difference on this. So we're going to talk a little further about some examples of specific PIs, but any questions on that at the moment? Okay, good. So here's a team of people, and there's a good amount of similarities here that you can see, right? All low A's, so that we have in common, and then we got some variety in the other things. So the form we're going to give you is going to look like this, so that someone could look at their team and say, okay, who are my low A's? Daphne, Velma, Fred, Shaggy. So if I'm having this kind of meeting with them, right, here's the tone I'm going to take, a little more of that reassurance, right? Why I'm confident with them, right? Create some of that harmony that we're in it together, et cetera. Then I'm going to think about, where do I have the other things? Who are my low B's? Velma and Fred, right? Highs are Daphne and Shaggy. So in this meeting, how do I adjust on this a little bit? I can expect that they're going to want to talk it through out loud, and that Velma and Fred might come and just listen more, and that's okay. Low C, Daphne, she's brief, concise communications focused on actions. So what am I going to do? I'm going to make sure for my low C's and D's that I hit those key bulleted pointed actions early on in the meeting. If they hear nothing else, I want them to hear these key things, right? And then I might go to some more of this depth of clarity and detail for my high D's who are going to want that. If I start and I go through all of the detail from the very beginning of the meeting, I have lost all my low C's and probably some of my low D's, right? But if I hit the bulleted big picture outcomes, key actions, if you take nothing else, do this with Daphne and Shaggy first, then as I'm spending more time on the process and detail and clarity with these folks over here, it's okay. Daphne and Shaggy have kind of stopped listening a little bit. They're on their phone, they're doodling, they're doing 3 other things. But that's going to happen no matter what. So why don't I just sequence it in terms of what I'm going to do first is hit the low CD needs, and then I'll go in more depth here on the high C and D. So I'm going to have this meeting. I'm going to say, if it's important, right, I'm going to try to send the agenda in advance so my low B's, my high C's and D's can have a chance to think about it, right? And I'll try to get some follow-up feedback, particularly from Velma, Fred, and Shaggy's high C, maybe after the meeting, right? Because they probably haven't said everything they need to. And if I want to check in on where they are, I probably need to do that so I can answer more questions. And I'm going to have more than one meeting with some people, right? I'm going to have some follow-ups with people to go in depth on the high CD stuff that I need to. And I'm going to do some guardrailing over here with my low C and Ds to make sure that the action they're taking is what we want. I'm going to stop right with this group being too blunt, right? And trying to challenge them to and push them and shove them. It's not going to work. And I don't need to have Velma and Fred necessarily actively participate. I shouldn't take that as a sign as don't care, not passionate, don't have opinions, not engaged, because I'm wrong on all 4 of those, right? They'll speak up when they want to. And if they don't, I'm going to follow up. What do I need to do? A mix of the in-person and written really helps this team for sure. So that's just one example. And as you can fill this out and put your team members on there, you know what to do, right? And you don't need to do this for routine things that are not important. We're talking about things that are important, like alignment and goals and priorities. And we really want to, it's worth us spending a little time having more than one conversation on this stuff for sure. So let's go through a couple other things to consider, right? One is the what. Based on my audience, is it big picture or a sequential roadmap, or do I need to do a little bit of both, right? Or have I got a whole bunch of high A's and I'm going to get in there and challenge them to world domination? Or is it a group of all low A's? And my tone is about world peace, right? How? Is it verbal or in writing? And based on my group, is it super fast paced or is it going to be more purposeful and methodical? Where should I get some feedback and listen? And how do I do that, right? One way is to say, hey, think about this. Send me an email tomorrow with your thoughts and ideas and questions on it, right? Or high B, let's get together and chat about this when you can, right? And talk about it more. Low C and D, I'm going to have a fast follow-up meeting to make sure they're on track. High C and D, I'm going to have a more thorough follow-up meeting to make sure we get their questions answered and they have everything they need to get started, right? When the starting meeting is that, right? What does the follow-up look like with who? I better get to those low C and Ds immediately because they're not going to wait. They're just going to go, right? I might give my high C and Ds a little more time, but then I'm going to invite them, bring all their questions and ask them what they need to really get going and get started. And I'm going to make sure that I don't label my high C, D, low Bs as change resistant, not on board, because they might not be emoting or sharing feedback or fully comfortable with it yet. That is not what's going on. And in fact, those high C, D, low B folks are some of the folks that are great at making the idea, the goal, the vision, the strategy turn from that into reality and executing it really, really well. So making sure you make some time to get them on board is a great way to ensure performance happens, right? So a couple more examples. These are some high B, A, B, low CD patterns, right? High dominance and extroversion, low patience, low formality. When you're thinking about this kind of topic and they're a participant, you want them to get aligned, take action, hit these goals. They're just naturally excited by action, change, deciding, and starting now. Great, right? They're ready. Let's go. Let's go conquer. Yay. Let's go conquer 10 things. Double yay, right? You don't have to put that fuel in the tank. What are the watchouts? Situational listeners at best, right? They may do what they want and how they want without a ton of regard for guardrails and what the precise deliverables are. These folks, many of them would decide whether we should go to Mars as a human race or not tomorrow with little regard for whether they're qualified to make that decision or not, right? What decisions do they like to make? A bunch of them, all of them. So if you don't give them some guardrails, guess what they're going to do? Whatever the hell they want to do, right? And that may or may not be exactly what you want. Preferred communication, verbal, bullet points, big picture, action focused. And these kind of profiles are really good at strategy and vision, inspiring, motivating, taking risks, and starting stuff, right? Not as great at the finishing, but great at starting. So that's the profile you're going to have, right? And what might be good about them in regard to alignment, engagement, buy-in. Ready, aim, fire. That's a bit of what happens here. Okay. Now, the low A and Bs, high CDs, right? What is good about these folks? Analytical, thoughtful, persistent, structured. They're going to be detailed, cooperative with what the organization wants, diligent. They do things right and well and thoroughly, right? So you can count on them for sure to take ideas, turn them into reality, right? And execute really well. The watchouts, they are going to be reluctant to get started, especially if it's new, different, unfamiliar, or not well defined, right? They want to get some clarity, expertise, so they are confident about what do I need to do? What does success look like? They won't start, or they won't start quickly without that, right? And generally what happens in these kind of meetings or discussions we're talking about is a leader gets up and goes, I did a great job. I really nailed that one. And these folks are wondering when they're going to get the other 80% of what they need to get started, right? And it's not someone's fault unless you know this and go, what I need to do is find out what else they need. Clarity, questions answered, et cetera, to get going. They like things in writing because then they can keep it, and they will, and they'll refer to it. And they want multiple communications, especially as they're getting started, to see how I'm doing, right? If these folks are running a marathon, they are not just interested in their time at the finish line. They want to know how they're doing every mile so they can adjust along the way and make sure that they get that finishing time. So there's a little more conversation feedback up front and a more frequent feedback up front. And then what you get is what we all want, which is exactly what you want, on time, on quality, on budget, on everything, because they will see to it. But they don't hit the starting gate with momentum unless you help them a little bit more, right? Okay. And then you've got, this is an altruist pattern, right? Which is kind of a mixture. Really great team players. They build relationships, they go quickly, yet they get things done right and well, and super willing to help, right? It's an interesting kind of conundrum, altruist, which is great with relationships, but team and others first, and they can move fast, handle pressure, handle variety, great, but they also get things exactly right. All the time, people overhire altruists, meaning they put them in jobs that they don't do well and don't like because there's this such kind of universally appealing profile. Everyone loves working with them, right? But look at their A and look at their D. Just because they're fast moving and great with people and can be such dynamic communicators and thorough, it doesn't mean they don't need some of that reassurance of here's what I need you to do. Here's why I think you'd be successful, and the structure and feedback to know they're on track. Like, don't mistake all of this really appealing stuff to say that you overlook the low A and high D needs there, because they're still there. And they want some of that high D consistent face time, talk things through, discuss things through, think out loud, for sure, right? But man, they're great at collaborating, relationship building, doing things with others fast and well, and with proper direction. Again, you get everything you want. But if they don't know and they don't have clarity, it can be hard for them to get going. They're not sure where they stand, even though they can be these very dynamic folks. All right. Then kind of the last example here, high A, right? Low B and C, and a slightly high D. These are amazing problem solvers, right? Critical thinkers, right? How do I make things more efficient, more effective? All of that, really good. super outcome oriented, also structured, diligent, are going to get things right. What's hard? They have super high standards for themselves and others that can be hard to meet. And again, they might have a little bit of disdain for fluff and feelings and all the emotional stuff or the communicative stuff that doesn't feel substance-based to them, right? What do they like? Written in advance, but look at that low C. Get right to the point, right? Just enough for sure. And avoid the small talk and warming them up and buttering them up. They don't like it. Just get to the substance, and you can be super direct with them as they are going to be with others, right? And where do they shine a lot of times? Process, structure, standards, ways to do things, and then implementing it with excellence, even if it's unpopular or difficult, right? This is right, this is correct. Others don't like it. They say, too bad for them, right? So they can be very straightforward and kind of forces of nature in that way, for sure. So hopefully that can be helpful in terms of just some examples of what different kinds of patterns might need when you think about this. One of the tools you have is analytics, where you can take a group of people like this and look at their behaviors, right? Here's A, and this is the norm, obviously. 1 sigma high, 2 sigma, 3 sigma, right? And then 1, 2, and 3 sigma low. So when you look at groups, you're probably going to have this kind of mixture of folks. And to Amber's point, you go, how do we handle these groups of people where you might have diverse needs? So this is our organization. And if you break it out into our roles, here's what our support team looks like, right? High D, kind of high C, low B, low A. So if we were going to do this with them, right, or consider them, what we know is that meeting that we're going to have might be fine. But there's a number of folks on this team that we should meet with and follow up and go, what are the questions you have? What else do you need? How do we provide more depth and clarity of expectations so you guys can get started, right? And as you kind of look at jobs and people, you go, yeah, some of these jobs are kind of like this, and they're going to need this. Here's our consultant team, right? High A and B, low C and D. So what are they going to do in the meeting? Talk, be engaged, have a bunch of opinions, be ready to go, burst through the door, go conquer the world, right? So what do we need to do with them? Our follow-up is a little bit more about, hey, team, replay what we agreed on and the actions are. Hey, team, what are the outcomes and the guardrails you're not going to go outside of, right? And when they inevitably get that wrong, you're going to reset that a little bit, right? So that they're not going 100 miles an hour northwest when you wanted north. But you can do this and look at any kind of group of people you want. Look at an entire team. You can look at people in job titles, and it might be a helpful way for you to take a crack at and help a leader say, hey, there's a kind of an approach A with these folks and an approach B with these folks. And it doesn't mean you wouldn't have some of that even within the same job. But what you're looking at is, how can I kind of knock this off and make this easy to be effective, right? With a little bit of effort, I'm going to get better performance and alignment and engagement. So this is in analytics in your PI software, and you can put any group of people you want. You could put them in by job target or anything. And if you need help with this, it's really easy. We'll show you, right? So just reach out to us and we can help you get this kind of under your hat. The last thing for your leaders to know, which is if you're not sure what to do with someone, ask that human, right? Ask them, just say, what else do you need? What would be effective, right? They know. Hero and I have one-on-ones all the time. And one of the standing questions I ask her is, what else do you need to get started, right? Because I know with my low C and D, I've probably given her 20% of what she really needs. And I think I've done a great job. And she goes, I'm glad you asked with her low A, right? Because she's probably not going to bang my door down and if I don't make it comfortable for her. And she goes, here's all the other stuff, right? So if your leader isn't sure, just ask the person, what would be effective? What do you need? How could I help you get really comfortable with this, right? It's a great question to ask the other human so that they don't have to have every right answer. And a big deal here is, let's just be aware that one style might not work. And if we put a little effort into adjusting a bit, what we get is better engagement and more likeliness that we can have people achieve these goals that we've set for them, these priorities, right? And your leader is less likely to go, that's the last damn town hall I'm ever doing because it didn't work, right? Like, no, it probably did, but with a little extra, what could we get? For sure. So how do you check in? a lot of you have ways that you set goals and sophisticated, thoughtful goal setting processes. You write SMART goals, you do other things, you do quarterly check-ins, et cetera. But I think one of the key things that you could do is have your leaders get in the habit of asking a couple questions, right? Which is, when it comes to someone's goals or priorities or what we're trying to accomplish, go back in a day or a week and have them ask someone, hey, Hero, so what are your top 3 goals this quarter, right? And Hero either is able to spit them out right then and there in the moment, or she might look them up and go, I've got them written down. Hold on one second, pulls them out and goes, here's what they are. But what if she can't tell me that? What is the likelihood? I'm just hoping as a strategy that she's working on the right things and is comfortable, right? People should be able to tell you what are the top 2 or 3, 5, whatever. It can't be 10. 2 or 3 things you're working on this year or quarter. That's the first question. And then Hero's going to tell me your top 3. I'm going to go, what does success look like? How do you know if you've been successful? This is just a little verbal, great kind of summary exercise that if you have people on a team or in your organization that know the answers to these questions, guess what their engagement alignment is like, right? And it's super simple. We don't need to give leaders, a whole bunch of new stuff to do. But if we're going to go to the trouble of putting effort into setting goals, priorities, or vision, or alignment, and trying to get rowing in the same direction, there needs to be a way that we check in to say and check and see if we've got people there. Because that's our job as leaders, for people to know this and understand this. And it's okay if it's imperfect. But how do we know if we don't ask, right? And this could be done via a survey, right? Ask people to write down the answer to these 2 questions, or a leader just checking in with their direct reports or their project team or whatever. But make it easy so that you can do this very quickly, because people either know the answer or they don't. You ask them 10 goals, they're not going to know. You ask your top 3 priorities, they should know. And if they don't, I got a little work to do. What does success look like? Good. If they know that answer, they really know the criteria too. Now we're cooking with gas. And this takes, I'd say 3 minutes, right, to do this exercise and find out, is my team in the right place or not? We're in love with simple, right? Make it simple for people, for sure. Last thing, written communications. Sometimes you roll things out and you have to roll them out in writing. You don't always have a meeting, and you're going to have some version of, boy, I've got all types of behaviors, right? So our recommendation is, 1, when you do written communications, you got to think about my audience there, right? I'm going to do a headline geared to everyone, right? That's going to capture interest. What's in this communication? Or maybe there's even a call to action. The second thing I'm going to do is put in the 3 to 5. Let me double, bold, underline, score 3 to 5, not more bullets. Those are, if people read nothing else, I at least need them to read this, because guess what your low C's and D's are going to do? Look at the headline and look at the first thing in there. And if that's not compelling, they're out. Even if it is compelling, they're out. So you look and you write those 3 to 5 bullets to go, all right, if all they get is this, I have to have them know this piece. 3 to 5 bullets. Then detail, right? The body detail comes next, because your high C's and D's almost always will read all of that. And so will your interested others, right? Those bullets, it's something that's really important to a low CD. They go, good, I want to know more. But if you just do the normal, right, intro, body, conclusion, we're all taught to write in grammar school, you've lost your low C's and D's, and there's little chance they're going to make it that far. It either captured them up front or it didn't. So you're not sacrificing any of the detail your high C's and D's want, but you've got a way to hit those low C's and D's right up front. And this can be a nice general way to do any communication that you're thinking about. We'll send you an example or 2 of this along with the forums after class, but this is a good way to kind of hit all styles when it's in writing, and some things need to be. All right, so we like outcomes more than we like just being us. So we're going to help adjust a little bit. We're going to send you these tools. Please, 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 right? You kind of already know, I hope. We're super nerdy. We love talking about this, and we want to talk to you about this. So reach out to your VP or your consultant or support at MindWire Group, and we'll show you how to do this or walk you through any of it or give you some very specific strategies or whatever you need, right? We want to help you for sure. So we'll go to questions in just a second, if there are some. But our next webinar, I'm exceptionally excited about. We're going to help take data. How do you use PI and other data to diagnose kind of the team or the army that I've got, right? Your leaders all have teams and they have goals this year, and probably no one said, hey, do less and do it more, do even poorly than you did last year, right? We all want to do more and better. So how do you help a leader go, what's the team I have and where is the potential for increased performance and what could I do to get it? And we'll also help you then after that, build and diagnose a team or two with a dashboard to make that happen. So Hero's putting a registration chat there. If you want to join us next month, we'll also send it to you. But let me stop and see if there's any questions on what we talked about today or any feedback. Terrible, helpful, something in between. We love it all. You guys are going to let me off the hook that easy. Okay. Wow. Thanks. Thank you, Scotty. Really appreciate it. So before we wrap today, if anyone wants to stay and hang on for a couple minutes and ask a couple specific questions, Hero and I are happy to hang out for as long as you'd like to. I know sometimes people don't want to ask questions in front of the group, but we're all here for the same reason, which is how do we use this stuff? So thank you for joining us. Would love your feedback too, in the chat now, or if you want to think about it, get back to us on. Boy, we'd love to see webinars on or do some of this stuff. So if you have any ideas there, that'd be great. But thank you guys for joining us today. Hero and I will be here for a few minutes. If you want to hang out and chat about anything and talk about it, that's great. I want to say thank you to my friend Tony Paul for joining us. Not a MindWire client, but a friend of us, and good to see you here, TP. And hopefully we'll see you guys next month. Again, call us, reach out. We're happy to help. And if anyone wants to hang out for a few minutes, be happy to chat and nerd out right here with you. Otherwise, have a great rest of your week, everybody. Hero, thank you. And we'll talk to you guys soon.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. Really great having you on.
Absolutely.
Amber, let's see if I can let you talk. Here.
Oh, yeah, Amber, you have your hand up. Look at you.
Oh, man, there was a
parliamentary procedure there.
There we go. Okay, Amber, you should be able to unmute your mic.
Got it. I think I did.
Hey.
You did.
Hey. Hi, this was wonderful and exactly, I was just getting ready to ask Scotty about something just like this, so thank you.
Yeah.
So my diverse team, on our team calls, the super outgoing, assertive, aggressive ones are always speaking, and then my more quiet ones are quiet, which is fine.
Yep.
But I find that we go over our time limit because, people ask questions, they're engaged, and, we kind of get off topic, even at the beginning when I say, how's everyone, anything going on, anything you need. So
Yeah.
I feel like I'm setting up a parameter that gets us started maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes late, and then we run over time, which I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So in a group setting, and everyone seems to like the question or like the topic, but sometimes it's more just chit chatty or small talk. How do I set the parameters while having the support of loving the openness and the engagement, but keeping to the time? I find it's very difficult.
Yes, I'm glad you're saying that, Amber, because anytime you have enough B, high B, low C, and even you put in some higher A in there in a group, you are bound to have that happen in a meeting, which is, it's funny, but I was with a different client a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about this in terms of their executive team meetings. And I said to them, guys, I could probably get you into a 4-hour debate about the wood grain on the cabinets over there, and you dive into that with passion and enthusiasm and practically come to blows if we set it up right? Which is, what will they engage on? Everything. And so to your point, Amber, you have to have some structure for that so that the low B, high CD folks that might be in there can know what's coming, and also so that you can make sure you manage the time. So one thing that we do on our meetings that we found valuable is we have a check-in which is an opportunity to tell us how your week's going on a 1 to 10. And we just do it in a chat, right, where they just put it in. And then if people want to share a little bit about that, they can. But we also have a time limit to that, which is we are not going to spend more than 10 minutes on that period. So we know we have to get done in 10, and at 10, we cut it off. Then the other thing we do is prioritize the items for a meeting with a structure so that we don't find that we accidentally spent 30 minutes on the fourth most important thing and didn't get to 1, 2, and 3. And that requires the leader of the meeting to kind of prioritize that or make sure that's done with the team. And then be a little bit ruthless about it, which is, like you said, it's hard when people are engaged and excited and you're like, this is a great conversation. But if you can make sure you prioritize in the meeting, we have to make sure we get this done first, second, third, and give the right time to it, that can help you. And when you're on item 2 and it's going great and they want to eat into, might eat into and eliminate the third thing you need to get to or run over, that's where you as a leader have to go, okay, guys, what I want to do is stop right here, because we have to table the rest of this or we're not going to get to number 3. And sometimes you might have to make the call yourself as a leader, go, I have to stop and we got to move because we have to get to number 3. Or you might let the team decide. But what happens all the time with high B, low C's is they get, if you will, interrupted, meaning they can go on for a while. And if someone doesn't bring them back and go, love it, love the energy, appreciate it, I want to make sure I keep us on track, they won't even realize they're off track. And they're not offended by that. People usually go, yeah, okay, got it, right? Because they'll have more to say. And that's okay. So a little bit of parliamentary procedure in terms of the structure of the meeting and the priorities and what time you're going to allow for what is really important. And sometimes those personal check-ins and shares are so meaningful and they bond a team, and it's important around trust. But you go, we got 10 minutes. Now, then people start to learn, if I'm having a lousy week and I want to talk about it, I can. If there's something really cool I want to talk about, I can. But I also, if I don't have something to say, I still get to check in, and maybe I give the floor to others, right? Because you may not hear from everybody, that's okay, but everyone gets a status on how folks are doing. But you go 10 minutes, that's it, right? So who really wants to share? And people will. And then what are the most important things you have to get done in the meeting? And always number 1 on your list is the stuff that is, we have to decide, communicate, take action on number 1, and then cascade it down from there. Sometimes meeting agendas get to some of the easy, simple stuff. Let's knock that off first. And then they don't get to the most important because it feels good to go, let's nail some of these simple things. And then you go, we only got halfway through that. We didn't get to the most important thing. So reversing kind of that sequence and then having someone, it doesn't always have to be the leader, right? You could even rotate among the team members who go, you must keep us on track. You must manage the time and let us know, hey, this is great, but we got to stop and move on. Or it's great, and if we're going to keep going, we're sacrificing these other things. So, yeah. But interrupting the high Bs is okay. They're used to that.
Mm-hmm. I would say, yeah, I like the idea of rotating it among team members or picking your highest D on the team because they'll love that job.
Yeah.
So it's so interesting. So that's helpful because I know I need to set some boundaries and some parameters without squelching the energy. And I have the benefit and privilege of my team all love each other and they love hearing from each other. And even on the littlest things like, oh yeah, this weekend I did this or, whatever. And they really engage with each other. And I think part of the problem is I'm a high B, a low C, and a highest D.
Yep.
So all this chit chat and all this chatter and them bonding on more of a personal level is great for me because of my PI, but yet I still have to control the meeting and get things done. So it's probably playing in more to my PI that it feels comfortable for me, but yet I also want to be respectful that we have a time limit and we don't want to go over.
You bet. And as you know, Amber, being a high B, but those folks, they are used to that and they actually appreciate that someone will keep it on track that way. And it's also unmistakable when you start the meeting with the check-in and the share and Hero, how's your week going 1 to 10? And she says 10 and we go, ooh, tell us what's going on, and she can share that for a minute. when there's a structured way and it's first, it's unmistakable about the importance of it. But then the team learns it's 10 minutes and we're not going over. Right. And so you have to hold it. So the first time that 4 people have gone and eaten up the whole 10 minutes, you go, okay, gang, 10 minutes to 10 minutes. So, I love the sharing, but we also want next time make sure that we are really hitting the essence so that anyone that wants to can go. It's okay. We're just getting better at this, guys, but that's what we're going to do. The second you let an hour meeting go to 2 hours every time or an hour and a half every time, people will unconsciously know we can just take as much time as we want.
Right.
You have to move it along. And tell them why you're doing that, right? I have to have a little, and your idea will be perfect, but tell them why you're doing it so that we can make sure the meetings are not just engaging, but as productive as we want them to be. And that we spend the time that's expensive and critical getting a team together on the most important stuff. And the first thing is this team and the bonding is critical. So that's why we prioritized it first in every meeting, then blah, blah. And Amber, I'd say the same thing for one-on-ones. If you've got high B direct reports and you're doing one-on-ones, whatever the time frame is, if it's 30 minutes, if it's 60 minutes, if it's 90, they'll want to go over. And what you have to get them trained to do is you say, look, we've got 30 or 60, whatever it is. It's your 30, it's your 60, but we are not going to go over. So at 60 minutes, we're done. So if we don't get to your most important stuff, you're going to have to rethink where we spend time, how we spend time, and then be a little ruthless about it, because then a high B will start coming and going, okay, I got to pay attention because I want to make sure I talk to Amber about these 3 or 4 things, right? And just remind them that you're doing it for them and for you, and it's just the respectful thing to do, right? And with some of your high Bs, you need to remind them first and go, hey, Tom, we're 25 minutes in on this. Is this where you want to spend time? If so, okay. But I want to make sure we don't miss the other things because we got ahead of steam on this. And there's just a little bit of conditioning and practicing that can happen. But it's the blessing and the curse. The high Bs are engaged, they're talking, they're energized by it. But is it as productive as it needs to be? Not without parliamentary procedure that gets enforced.
I like that. Thank you. That's very helpful.